The tunnel that wasn't there yesterday. It was one of those summers where everything felt like it had been left out too long. The grass turned crunchy. The sky was too bright in a way that hurt to look at. The heat made the streets shimmer, and the air tasted stale, like someone had cooked something bad and tried to cover it with air freshener. I remember sweating through my shirt, just sitting still, not even moving. I'd hang out behind the Texaco, where the pavement dipped into a drainage ditch, and just kill time kicking pebbles, listening to whatever burned CD I had in my pocket player, usually something loud enough to drown out my thoughts. You couldn't walk more than 10 feet without the thing skipping, but it beat sitting at home. That was the summer I found the tunnel that wasn't there the day before. I wasn't looking for it. I just glanced over and noticed it one afternoon, squinting through the heat haze. A round opening, maybe 7 feet tall, where I knew there used to be a small pipe you had to crawl through. I'd been there 100 times. We'd tagged the walls, thrown beer bottles into it. It wasn't just bigger now. It was different. Cleaner. No graffiti. No drag marks in the dirt. No tire tracks. I stared at it for a minute. Then I backed away and biked home. Next day, it was still there. I asked Jake, my neighbor, about it. He lived right near that stretch of road. He frowned like I'd asked something stupid. "I think that tunnel's always been there," he said. That sat wrong with me. I didn't argue. I just said, "Yeah, maybe," and dropped it. But I went back again that afternoon, not even sure why. I had a tiny flashlight that barely worked unless you hit it first. I clicked it on, stood at the entrance, and stepped inside. The air changed instantly. Not cooler like I expected, just heavier, denser, like walking into a vacuum-sealed room. The walls were concrete but too smooth. Flashlight beam bounced off them flat, no texture. I didn't go far, maybe 30 feet. Tossed a rock deeper in, no echo, just a clink, then silence, like it got swallowed. I left, not in a panic, just weirded out. Told myself I'd imagined the change, but I kept thinking about it. A couple days later, I went back, then again, and again. I didn't tell anyone. The tunnel became like this itch. Not something I looked forward to, but something I couldn't stop scratching. Every time I walked a little farther, every time the air felt a little warmer, and every time I left, I swore I wasn't going back. But I did. I tried to mark the wall once with sidewalk chalk. Just a little X, maybe 50 feet in. Came back the next day. It was gone. I tried again with my house key. Scraped a deep line into the concrete. Next day, nothing. Like the tunnel didn't want to be remembered. The wall started to feel soft. Just a little. Like old drywall under paint. The give was subtle. But once I noticed it, I couldn't not notice it. I started holding my breath without meaning to. The air smelled faintly metallic. Not blood, more like rust, or the inside of a freezer that's been off too long. Then came the faces. The first time I saw one, I thought it was just a weird bump in the wall. I moved my light, and there it was. Eyes, nose, lips. Not a carving, not graffiti. Part of the wall. It didn't look scared or angry, just watching. Eyes closed, mouth relaxed. I turned around and walked out. Didn't go back for a week, but of course I went back. There were more the next time. 3, spaced evenly apart. One of them looked like my 9th grade science teacher. Another looked like my old bus driver. I didn't say their names out loud. It felt like I shouldn't. Each visit, the tunnel stretched a little longer. Or maybe I just walked further without realizing it. I lost track of distance. My flashlight started to flicker more often. I bought a better one. It lasted longer, but not enough. And then I started hearing things. Not loud, not voices, just footsteps. But wrong. Not behind me. Not ahead either. It was like something was walking underneath the floor, slow, careful, like it was trying not to be heard. But the floor was solid concrete, no crawl space, no gaps. Once I whispered, "Hello," and instantly regretted it. No answer. But the steps stopped. I didn't run that time. I walked, fast, but I didn't run. The silence followed me out like something curious that didn't quite feel like chasing yet. The last time I went in, it was early evening. I'd had a headache all day. I don't even remember making the decision. I just ended up there with my flashlight and a pocket full of lint. The tunnel felt warmer than usual. Not hot, just uncomfortably close. I walked deeper, expecting to see the same faces. I didn't. They were gone. Instead, there was just one, at the very back, alone. It was mine. Same cheekbones, same scar on my chin from when I fell off my bike in 3rd grade. Even had the weird freckle under my left eye. But the face was wrong. It was smiling. A huge, wide grin. Something I'd never done in my life. Not like that. Not with all my teeth. Then its mouth moved. Not much. Just a little twitch at the corner. Enough to show that it wasn't frozen. That it could open more if it wanted to. I stepped back. My flashlight flickered. I raised it again, and the smile was wider, and its eyes were open. But they weren't looking at me. They were looking past me. That's when I heard the footsteps again. This time, not below. This time behind. I didn't turn around. I just ran. Sprinting, crashing into the wall once, catching myself. The light died in my hand, and I ran anyway. I didn't care about falling. I needed to be out. The air hit me like a punch when I burst into the heat outside. I collapsed in the grass and didn't move for 5 minutes. I didn't tell anyone. What was I going to say? A week later, I went back. The tunnel was gone, not sealed off, gone. No rubble, no caution tape, just grass and slope. The wall behind the Texaco looked like it always had, stained, a little cracked. No sign anything had ever been there. I thought about asking someone again. Jake, the Texaco guy, anyone. I didn't. Actually, wait. No, that's not true. I did try showing Jake once. Right after I saw the first face. I took him back there. Told him I wanted to show him something weird. But when we got there, it was just dirt and weeds. He looked at me like I was messing with him. We didn't talk much after that. Maybe that was part of it. Maybe it wanted to be mine. I tried to forget about it. Then last year, I was in another town for a job interview. Different state. I was walking back to my motel when I passed a bridge overpass. And there, off to the side, was a tunnel. Round, concrete, just sitting there like it belonged. I didn't go in, didn't even slow down. But as I passed it, I glanced sideways, just for a second, and I saw something shift along the wall. A curve, a shadow, like the start of a face. I haven't been back, but this week, the heat's creeping in again. That same dry air, that same sky that looks too clean. And earlier today, I passed by the slope behind the Texaco, just for a second. I could have sworn I felt the ground hum. Letters from below. I moved into the flat when I was 19. Top floor, end of a council block just outside Nottingham. Concrete stairwells, brown water stains on the ceiling, walls thin enough to hear your neighbour's kettle. It was one of those places that always smelled faintly like wet mop and old shoes. I wasn't in a good place, if I'm honest. Breakup, job loss. I'd stopped answering calls from family and mostly just lay around watching DVDs and eating toast. The flat was cheap, too cheap, and came through a mate's cousin or someone like that. One of those handshake deals where you say yes before asking why nobody else wanted it. Turns out I was the first tenant in that unit for over 5 years. I didn't ask questions, just moved in and started rotting like a forgotten bag of salad. Slept all day, stayed up all night. Watched static when I couldn't find batteries for the remote. Even that felt better than silence. I started noticing things in the 3rd week. Footsteps, not above, not next door, below. That's what threw me. I was on the top floor. The unit below mine, 2B, had been sealed off years ago. Fire damage or a gas leak, according to someone I chatted to outside the block. Council had bricked it shut. No door, no windows. But some nights, around 2 or 3 in the morning, I'd hear something down there. A soft, dragging sound, like furniture being nudged across carpet. Then a pause, then footsteps, slow and careful. Not pacing, just moving, testing the floor. I told myself it was the building settling, pipes, air pressure, the usual excuses. Then the first letter came. I found it poking up through a tiny crack between the floorboards by my bed. Pale yellow envelope. No stamp, no name. Just a single page, folded once. Neat handwriting, a bit old-fashioned. I hope the noise isn't too much. I try to be quiet when you're resting. Welcome, neighbor. Mara. I stood there for a good minute, just staring at it. The floorboard, where it had come through, was warped and loose. I peeled it back and saw nothing, just black space and a weird pocket of warm air, like someone had left a heater on underneath. No light, no sound. I dropped a coin in, didn't hear it land. The next night, a second envelope. This one said, "The song you played yesterday, it reminded me of being young." I'd played an old CD that day, volume barely up. I thought I was alone in the building. Apparently not. I told the guy across the hall. He just looked at me and said, "That flat below, it's not real anymore. Hasn't been for years." Then he walked off like he didn't want to keep talking. I tried to laugh it off. Told myself maybe someone was slipping letters in through the walls, or I'd fallen for some elaborate joke. But the handwriting matched, and the paper always smelled faintly sweet, like dried flowers and something else, something metallic. They started showing up more often. Some were friendly. Mara asked about my sleep, hoped I was eating properly, said she liked the smell of toast in the mornings. Other times, the letters were off. One mentioned a dream I'd had, something I hadn't said out loud to anyone. Another asked why I never looked down. That night I found the hole. Not the crack where the letters came from. This was a perfectly round hole, the size of a bottle cap, bored straight through the wood near the bed. I looked inside. At first there was nothing. Then something shifted, way down, like a reflection or a glint. And then, closer than it should have been, I saw movement, a finger. It reached up slowly and tapped the inside of the hole once, twice, 3 times. I backed away like the floor had teeth. Didn't sleep that night. Just sat on the sofa and stared at the microwave, which had started glitching around the same time the letters began. The numbers would vanish and flash random patterns. Once, I swear, it showed something like a spiral that turned inside out. One morning, I found the microwave door open and a single strand of hair coiled inside. Not mine. Too long, too pale. Another time, I woke up to find my razor in the freezer. The plastic handle was warm to the touch. That still makes my stomach twist, even now. I started sleeping with the lights on. Duct taped the hole shut, then sealed the floorboards with packing tape and shoved the bed to the other side of the room. The next letter came in the fridge, wedged between a bottle of ketchup and a cracked egg carton. It's rude to ignore people. I left a note of my own, folded and pushed through a corner crack I hadn't sealed yet. Who are you? 2 nights passed. No answer. On the 3rd, I woke to find the mirror in the bathroom fogged, even though I hadn't used hot water. In the middle of the glass, a single word had been written from the inside. Again. That night I dreamed of her for the first time. A staircase, old and concrete, going down forever into black water. She stood at the bottom, wearing a coat buttoned wrong and a scarf wrapped too tight. I couldn't see her face, just a blur, like it had been wiped out. She called my name, but her voice sounded like a dial-up modem. I woke up with my pillow damp, not sweat. It was cold and smelled sour like breath. The back of my shirt was inside out. I stopped going outside, pulled blackout curtains over the windows, slept during the day when I could, and watched the hallway at night. Once, I found the front door's chain lock hanging on the outside. I didn't open the door for a week after that. Then came the final letter. It came up through the floorboard, pushing its way out from beneath the rug. Even though I'd nailed it down, the envelope was wet, stained red-brown at the corners. The paper inside was smudged but legible. I'm coming up. Put the kettle on. I didn't pack. I didn't even put on shoes. Just bolted out the door and down the stairs so fast I clipped my shoulder on the wall. Slept in the bus station until sunrise. I didn't go back. I left the keys in a takeaway bag on the front step and called the council the next day. Told them I was surrendering the lease. Never gave a reason. A few months later, I went back just to see it again in daylight. The unit door was shut, padlocked, curtains drawn, no mail. I walked past slowly and tried not to look at the window. I couldn't explain why, but I didn't want to see myself in the reflection. I asked one of the painters doing the hallway about the flat. There's only 5 in the block, he said. Top floor's got 2. Next one down's just 1 big unit. I asked if flat 2B had ever been reopened. He paused, gave me this sideways look, then said, "There's never been a 2B here. I live far away now, detached house, no one above or below, quiet neighbours, my own key to the fuse box. But last week, I found a letter on the floor by the back door. Same paper, same smell. Inside wasn't a note. It was a drawing, done in pencil, shaky lines. It showed a floor plan. Not my old flat, my current house. 1 room was circled, the crawl space under the stairs, a place I haven't opened since I moved in. Underneath the drawing, in that same sharp cursive, still room." The Vinyl Woman. Back in '98, I worked at this half-dead record store in Plainfield, Indiana. Strip mall spot next to a laundromat and a video rental place that still had a cardboard cutout of Wesley Snipes in the window. The store was called Needle and Groove, but the G had fallen off the sign, so it just read Needle and Rove. Nobody ever bothered to fix it. I was 16, mostly working weekends and evenings after school. Russ, the owner, spent most of his time in the back watching taped WWF pay-per-views and eating chili from a thermos. I was the only one who actually touched the vinyl bins, and even then, it wasn't like people were knocking down the doors to buy jazz records in 1998. Vinyl wasn't cool again yet. We sold a few cassette tapes to older folks, some clearance CDs, but mostly I stood behind the counter, messing with the stereo and trying not to fall asleep. The air always smelled like wet cardboard and the ozone stink of ancient electronics. Then she started showing up. She never walked in. I know how that sounds, but I mean it literally. I'd blink or turn my head for half a second, and suddenly she'd be there, standing by the jazz shelf. I never saw her come through the door, never heard the chime, just appeared. She wore this long grey coat like it was October, even though we were deep into one of those Indiana summers where the pavement gets soft by noon. Her hair was dark, flat, and hung in strips over her face, pale, but not like she was sick, more like she hadn't been outside since colour TV. She didn't look at me, just slowly reached for a record and brought it to the counter. It was always the same one. Crimson Hill, live at La Scala. I remember the sleeve perfectly. A red hill under a black sky. No band name, no label logo or barcode. The kind of cover you'd expect to find on a bootleg or something European and artsy. I flipped it over. Blank. She placed it down gently, like it could bruise. Then she pulled a small cloth bag from her pocket and poured out $3.19 in exact change, mostly nickels. Some of the coins were so old I don't think they'd have worked in a vending machine. I rang it up as Misc Jazz and put the money in the till. She took the record and left, except the next day it was back. Same exact copy, sitting behind the counter where we kept rare imports. Same faint ring mark on the front, like someone once set a warm coffee cup on it. Russ didn't know how it got there. Said maybe I'd misfiled something. 3 days later, she came in again. Same routine, same record, same coins. This went on for weeks. She never browsed, never spoke, never looked around. Always that same strange hush that followed her. I started noticing how the air changed when she was near, like that pressure in your ears before a thunderstorm. Sometimes the music would get warbly, like the stereo was underwater. A few times, the speakers cut out completely. I remember one afternoon, I tried to stop the loop. I put the record in my backpack and took it home. Just wanted to see what would happen. Locked it in my closet that night, didn't tell anyone. Next day, it was back behind the counter. My bag was empty. That was the last time I touched it. I tried to look it up. Crimson Hill, live at La Scala. Nothing. Not on the shop's catalogue, not in any music database, not even on the internet. And this was back when the internet was new. But even then, I could usually find something. One time, I asked Dave, this guy who covered Saturday mornings. He looked at the cover and said, "Weird. Looks kinda cool though." Then tossed it back in the bin. That was the most anyone ever said about it. But the weirdest time, the one that still gives me that frozen feeling in my gut, was a Thursday in July. Midday, dead quiet. I was flipping through an old GamePro and sipping flat soda when I felt it. That pressure. My ears popped and the ceiling fan hiccuped. I looked up. She was standing in front of the wall speakers. Not looking at them, facing them. Perfectly still. The music playing was some ambient compilation I'd left running. It glitched. Not a skip, more like a stuttered loop. Same piano note, stretching out like it was caught on something. Then starting again, over and over. She tilted her head, real slow, like a puppet on old strings. Then she hummed. Same melody she always did on the way out, warped, simple, like a lullaby played in reverse. Only this time it sounded layered, like more than one version of her, out of sync. A duet with herself. I unplugged the stereo. The music didn't stop, not immediately. It played for 2 more seconds, slower now, like it was melting. Then silence. She turned toward me. Her eyes crinkled slightly at the corners. Not a full smile, just a trace. but her mouth didn't move. It was like she was letting me in on something. She walked toward the entrance and passed behind a clearance rack of tapes. I moved to follow her, finally ready to say something, ask something, anything. She was gone. No door sound, no parking lot shadow. Just gone. I didn't quit right away. Worked through the rest of the summer. But she never came back, and the record stopped appearing. When school started again, I didn't bother showing up. I didn't think about her for years. Moved out of Indiana, bounced around. College, jobs, failed relationships. The usual. Then, 2 years ago, I was in Knoxville, walking home in the rain after a dentist appointment and ducked into this junk shop I'd never noticed before. Dusty windows, cracked tile, the kind of place that smells like burnt plastic and mothballs. I flipped through a bin of old records out of habit. That's when I saw it. Crimson Hill, live at La Scala. Same sleeve, same ring mark, same sense of pressure, like the building was holding its breath. I picked it up and felt heat against my palm. Not room temp, warm, like someone had been holding it. I bought it for $1. The guy behind the counter didn't look up from his crossword. I took it home and stared at it for a long time before finally putting it on my Crosley. Needle dropped, crackle. A faint crowd, like 100 people breathing in sync. Piano started, low and slow. Then the melody, same one she used to hum, but quieter now, folded into itself. I leaned closer. The surface of the vinyl shimmered, just slightly, like a heat mirage. Then I heard it, a wet inhale, bones creaking, not snapping, bending. Something trying to take up less space than it needed. Something curling. My chest tightened, my fingers locked. The melody shifted, not in pitch, but in proximity. It wasn't coming from the speaker anymore. It was behind me. I turned the player off. The turntable kept spinning. The record pulsed, breathed once, then stilled. I wiped it down, boxed it up, and shoved it in a drawer. Next morning, it was gone. No broken lock, no open window, closet undisturbed, just gone. And then I started hearing it. Not the record, just the melody. Once, in the hum of an elevator. Another time, under the static of a motel TV. Not loud, just low enough to make me wonder if I'd imagined it. But I didn't, because last week, I was at the grocery store, frozen section. Muzak playing overhead. I didn't recognize the song, but I was humming along. I wasn't thinking about her, wasn't even aware I was doing it, until my chest matched the beat, until my breathing matched the loop. I dropped the cart and left without saying a word. Now I try not to hum in public, not when I'm alone, not even when I think I've forgotten the tune, because I haven't. I try to remember it on purpose sometimes, just to test myself. But nothing comes, total blank. And then days later, I'll hear it again, rising up from the background somewhere, soft, familiar, like it had been waiting its turn, and realize my mouth is already moving. I think that's how she gets in, not through the record, through the end of the song.